Number one, principle about money is that money is made up. Money is made up.
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years. Our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
Money is made up. Money is an idea. What do you think that means? Give me an example. Money is basically just something that's made up literally by our government, right? It's printed up. It's called fiat money. It's not really backed by anything. It's just an idea in that scenario. And so money, I want you to understand there's this thing that's behind it called cause and effect. Cause and effect. So you look at how that money is. In that scenario, money is an effect, not a cause. Money is an effect, not a cause. What do you think that means? So the cause is the value that's intrinsic, right? And that creates the value of money, which is the effect. Are you with me on this? Does that make sense? Am I losing you? That the cause, which has the intrinsic value, is what creates the value of money, which is the effect. So the cause is the value. The value what?
Value of your service?
The value you bring to the marketplace.
The value of the problem you're fixing?
Yeah, which would also be summed up, right, as the value I bring to the marketplace to what? To a consumer who has what? A problem. And the effect of that, and how well I solve those problems, and how well I articulate my ability to solve those problems, then become the effect, which is what? Money. And this is the simplest way to look at it. If you're not making the money that you want to in this business right now, what's that mean? And it's interesting. And for us, we all have the tools. And if I had to break this down, this is kind of the most important but simple pieces of the entire teaching right here, is that if I was looking at everyone in here, and I looked at why are some making a lot of money and some aren't making as much money, what's the difference? What separates them? I spent a lot of time pondering this question. Your ability to articulate the value.
Of yourself?
Yeah, because you're making phone calls, but guess what's happening? Or some are making phone calls, some are faking phone calls, but mostly are making them, right? But if you're making the phone calls, they're answering, they're not working with you, what's that mean?
You're not articulating value.
You're not articulating the value to a way that they what? Believe it, understand it, and trust it. If you're meeting face to face, and they're signing or not signing, that comes down to your ability to do what? Articulate the value. Which is ultimately the call to do what? Solve their problem, bring value to the marketplace. And then ultimately them buying or not buying from you comes down to really, truly, the process of you really working with them, understanding, how well did I articulate the value? Because I already have the value proposition made for you. You just have to get really good at doing what? Articulating. So if you look at why some are a lot better than others, yes, there's small nuances about their patterns and their behavior and their beliefs and how much they're working. But really, the ones that are really good about articulating value, guess what they do? They sell more to make more money. It's that simple. We tend to make this so complicated and overcomplicated where it's very simple. So if I know that I'm not getting the sales I want, but I'm actually doing the work and making the phone calls, what does that mean I got to do? Become obsessed with how well I articulate value. I'm just taking that in and bringing that into my conscious and subconscious in a way that I'm so good at articulating that all the consumers out there do what? They trust and believe the value and want to buy from me or sell from me. And so what's happening is as this marketplace is shifting, some people are adjusting and some people are not. The ones who are not doubling down their value here are the ones that are getting their brain smashed in. And I can watch it, right? Some are falling off a cliff, some are keeping on crushing it like they haven't. Because they're doing what? They're very aware of what's happening and changing. They're changing the way they operate. They're colliding more with people. They're going deeper. They're understanding pain. They're becoming a lot more desirable to the clientele. By doing what? Speaking the right words, saying the right things, how the right word tracks. Those are the things that matter right now to understand that piece. That's kind of a sidetrack, but it's important once you guys look at it. But what sits behind the money, aka the value, is what brings the money. And so if you're struggling in any way, or if you're not in a slump, or you're not feeling right about this, you have to go back and understand how well am I articulating value in this business and how much value am I actually bringing. That's the other tricky question of this. Some are very good at talking about it, but guess what they're not good at doing? Backing it up, bringing it. So the client doesn't feel it. They don't feel the overwhelm, the overall appreciation. They don't feel the energy. They don't feel the follow-up. They don't feel the connection to you. And so they don't feel the connection, which means they do what? They pull back and mistrust. And they move on to someone else who actually does. That's how we lose to somebody who sold 4 houses or 1 house in their entire career, is because of the way they feel about our value and the way I bring it to them. Does that make sense to you guys? And that's a side teaching here that's separate from the overall topic, but I want you guys to take that part. And if you're struggling right now, guess what you got to do?
Triple down.
Like Andy says, become an assassin at bringing value and articulating my value to the marketplace right now. It's very crowded with less buyers who are more skeptical than ever. And so I know that, and there's 6,000 agents who haven't really fully contracted yet and gotten out the business, but they're fighting over the same amount of money, the same amount of business. That's 30% less than where it was last year. That means they're going to be that much better in how I articulate value, that much more to the point, and they have to actually do what? Feel me. They have to actually feel me in how I operate. And so I was just going to analyze, like, hey, look, conversion-wise is our biggest challenge right now. It's important to understand, but I'm going to move on to that. A lot of times people have these issues of belief about money, right? Money's made up. Money's just an idea, right? But I want you to understand money's cause and effect. So the more value I bring to the marketplace, the more money I get. Does that make sense? But a lot of times people have this belief about money that it's zero sum. What does that mean, you think?
You just have no clue.
Kind of. I mean, a different context here. So zero sum, what does that mean? All or nothing. So for me to make money, someone else has to lose money. And so people have this guilt behind money. And for me to make money, that means you got to take something from somebody else. Does that make sense, you guys? And so in reality, it's not. It's like, how much value can I bring to the marketplace, which brings money? And there's some examples that we talked about in our Warrior group. It says, an example, that's Facebook. Facebook was created in 2004 by Mark Zuckerberg in his dorm room, right? They IPO'd it, which means they did what? They took it public, right? Initial public offering in May of 2012 with an initial valuation of $104 billion. Where did that number come from, you think? It's made up. It was literally made the fastest way to really counterfeit money is to take an initial public offering with a company. Because you're basically just making up numbers. And if you counterfeited money, what would you do? Buy some high-end, very nice paper, right? And you buy some printer presses and you print money, and then you do what? You exchange it, right? When you do an IPO, a lot of times you're taking this stuff, right? Create really nice paper in the form of stock certificates. You hand them off to people, sell them off to people, and what they do, they exchange it, right? But it's an example there, but it's made up. And so when the IPO, and the reason I point to share this is that when the IPO came out, no one lost $104 billion. What happened? They exchanged it for something valuable, and people exchanged their money for that because they saw what in it? The value, right? And how that grew so big and so fast and all the other stuff. But the reality is, if you look at it just on paper, that he created something that brought massive value to billions of people, which brought a lot of value into that. People invested. No one lost out in that. Does that make sense to you guys? Same thing, give an example of corn, right? Take corn, right? You grow corn and take seed and land to grow corn. You guys with me on this? If you look at the numbers on this, seed's cheap, about $118 an acre, and the land can be leased. So you take that, right? Your corn stalk grows from the ground. People pay money for it. Pretty simple, right? Not overcomplicated. An acre of corn yields $8 per bushel, and you can put 200 bushels per acre. So that's $1,600 an acre. So if you look at it, it costs $118 an acre to create, and you sell it for what? $1,600. Almost 10x return by doing what? Bringing value, growing a seed. So they say money doesn't grow on trees. It literally grows from the ground in that scenario. All made up, right? Because of what? Value. And what people are willing to exchange for that scenario. And so no one has to lose for people to make money. What has to happen is you have to bring value to the marketplace that people want to do what? Exchange. And so the coolest part about this business, what we're doing, if you're not getting money, you're just not bringing enough value that people want to what? Exchange. It starts with a signature and exchanging here with agency agreement. Then it starts with a signature of actual buying and selling the property. And then it obviously gets to the closing part overall. And so it's also a gift and also a curse because all you have to do is get very good at what? Bringing value and articulating the value. Some of you just haven't worked hard enough yet to really understand how to package that value up in a way that comes across in the way of charisma. People want to follow the charisma. It's very simple. You just got to make sure you're able to bring more. In energy, in certainty, in the words you use, the word tracks you use, and the way you overcome objections. You guys with me on this? Very important piece to understand and look at that in that scenario with that. Third example of this, Bitcoin, perfect example. On October 31st, 2008, a paper was authorized, what you guys know, title what? Anybody know? We got some Bitcoiners in here. Right? Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Nakamoto gets credit for creating Bitcoin. There's created 21 million Bitcoin. How many more?
No more.
Not a single one more. And so the reason people invest in Bitcoin is why? There can't be more made in that scenario. Right? But if you understand it, right, Bitcoin's made up of all the different fiat currencies. Does that make sense in your scenario? But in reality, what is Bitcoin? Made up. Made up. This dude made up a paper, created some, a technology that was backed up, and how they obviously handled it, and obviously you have the peer-to-peer piece of that, right? And it was literally made up, and people felt more value in that than they did the fiat currency. But all those are just what? Made up. And what happens is, where people believe the value is where what? The money flows. So why do people put money in Bitcoin? Does it bring any value to you? Not directly, but you feel that if I can store value here, I can get more out later. Does that make sense? And so it's all based on what? Belief. The only reason you ever put money in Bitcoin is to do what? You believe that you're going to get more money when you get out. That's it. There's zero, no value. There's no corn. You can't eat it. You can't, convert it to anything. It's literally just something to hold value. All made up on the internet. Doesn't even exist. Right? And so that's just a way for you to understand that money is literally made up, and the only thing it does is flow to where? Value. And I want you guys to be obsessed with value. Another thing I'll get to really quick. The commodities. Anybody know this is a cool thing? Do you know what commodity has created the most millionaires? Give me some answers. It's pretty fun. Commodity. What commodity has created the most millionaires in the world? Oil. What else? Steel. What else? What is it? Railroads. What else?
Airplanes.
Real estate. Airplanes. What else? That's it?
Shipping.
You want to know? No? You ready for this?
Computer chips.
Sand.
What?
Sand's created more millionaires in the commodity world than anything else on the planet. And check this out. Sand is the second most abundant commodity on the planet. Behind what? You know what it is behind? Salt water. So the most abundant commodity on the planet, which is sand, has created more millionaires than anything else. Anybody know why? What's sand used to make? Glass. What else? Concrete. What else? What is it? Computer chips. But that's not the commodity. You said that at the end, right? So sand is used to create computer chips. And so as everyone has a computer in their house, right? The PC revolution has happened, and all of a sudden this commodity was taken. That's the most of, we can go right down the street right here and get it from the ocean, right? 3 miles away. All you can fit in your bucket, right? But the reality is, in half a Conway you can dig and get sand too. And so, but the difference is what? What I take with that sand and do what? How do I create value out of that sand? All made up, right? Sand is a commodity that was put into a made up thing that turned into a computer chip. Which just shows that there's abundance of this. The second most abundant commodity on the planet is what created the most millionaires. It's crazy. And so it's just interesting to look at and understand that, right? They make silicon chips, right? And silicon chips what make, obviously, computer chips in that scenario. So it's not about the commodity. It's about the idea behind the commodity. It's important to understand. I'm getting to a place right here. The idea behind the commodity. What does that mean, you think? And how does that relate to us? The idea behind the commodity.
Do something in the way that nobody else is doing to build value.
So what do people view real estate agents as?
The world goes.
Which is what? Commodity. A commodity is what? You trade commodities, right? Commodity will be labeled as what? Like something that's just like corn, oil, sand. Basically, everybody looks at sand as sand, right? There's no difference in them. And so you got to understand the difference in the commodity is the idea behind the commodity. How do you take the commodity and transform that into something? That's what we do in terms of what? Value, specifically the way we articulate our value to the consumer. The better you're articulating, the more value you're going to be able to portray, and the more value you're going to be able to give. Because unfortunately in our business, you have to portray the value and articulate it before they let you do what? Deliver it. They score you and size you up before they agree to work with you in the form of a buyer agreement or listing agreement. You guys with me on this? So it's important to understand that in scenario in that. Question. So here's a key part. We can create our own wealth out of nowhere, literally. But it comes down to you invent the money by learning your skill sets and increasing it. You invent the money by learning your what? Your value, which is what? Your skill sets. Overall in that scenario, right? And then you do what? Increase it. You have to make sure you increase it. So if you're struggling right now, people aren't converting, you haven't adjusted the marketplace, you have to make sure you find a way to do what? Increase your value, your skill sets overall, the way I articulate it, the way I bring it. Some of you just need to care at a deeper level with clients to the point in which they feel that you care. But if I looked at it overall as if you scored the actual view of them and their charisma, what's charisma mean? Their attractiveness, right? As an attractive character. I taught this a while ago with you guys. I talked about the attractive character. Most people aren't doing business with you because you're not an attractive character in front of them. Not that you aren't one in general. You just haven't put the show on when it's time to be on stage. Right? To bring that attractive character where they want to feel you and trust you to invest $100,000 with you. Or for you to sell their house, right? So it's very, very important to understand that scenario. I want you guys to understand that I can bring more money if I change my beliefs and do what? Level my skill set. And the reason I share that, it's not about the lack of money, it's about what? It's not that there's not a whole lot of money out there to be made. There's millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to be made right here in Myrtle Beach in real estate this year. But it's not the lack of money, it's the lack of what?
I think the belief that you have the value to bring to the marketplace.
The value, and that's going to get to that point, your head is doing great, is that the belief that I have behind the value. Meaning what? Do I believe I have the value to bring? Now, how do I have that belief? How do I create that? You increase yourself, but you have, what was it? Skill set, which means you have to do what? You got to build that person up by doing the work. Period. Right? DTFW. Practice, 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 practice. When nobody's looking, what are you doing? Studying, listening. Listen to podcasts. Listen to trainings. I already bought tons of stuff for you guys. You just got to go through it. Like over and over and over. Because what happens is as you invest time when no one else is, you're up early, 5 o'clock listening to stuff, right? Late at night listening to stuff. All of a sudden, after a few months, what do you feel? What is it? That you're owed, which is also that you what? Do you deserve it? Most people don't feel like they deserve it because they haven't done what? They haven't done the work to deserve it, so it's true. And you can change that simply by just doing the work and changing your belief about it. And I share this about you. I want you to take away the scarcity belief about money. Understand that money is not scarce. What's scarce is skill sets and value. Are you with me on this? I'll say it again. What's not scarce is money. Money's not scarce, but what's scarce, especially in real estate, is the skill set and value that people bring. And if I just change that and flip that upside down, where I lead with value and I bring actual value to the table, I didn't just read the script 6 times and think I know it, right? I role play and practice and train and understand the way I articulate myself and the way I carry myself, that I truly can portray that in a way that's real, then value flows to that. Money flows to value. Every single time. And the reason that you're not getting as much as you think you are is because someone else is bringing more value to the table than you are. That simple. And I share that this is simplified. People make real estate too complex. It's really simple, right? Practice it, study your ass off, understand the ways to articulate words, to say things, to understand the psychology of it, and then you just bring the value enough in a way that people believe you and trust you, you get a lot of money. That's why some people come in and crush it because they have natural skill sets, right? Natural abilities. Others don't, so what do you got to do? You got to learn it, right? I'm not naturally a great, salesperson. I just had to learn that and study psychology, but I was obsessed with it for 2 decades. You got to be, right? Very important piece there. Second piece of this. Does that make sense, you guys? I lose you on that? So this is the next piece here. Principle number 2. You must, so it's number 2. You must become wealthy on the inside first. You must become wealthy on the inside first. What does that mean, you think?
What you're feeding yourself up.
Your beliefs. What else? What was it? Confidence. I like that. What else? We see it all the time with pro athletes. Pro athletes do what? Make a ton of money, then what? They lose it. They lose it, right? Great basketball player made over $200 million in salary endorsements, but at the end of his career, guess how much he had? 0. Right? Because what happened from the wealth side has to be from the inside out. You can't have it from the outside in. And that's just, pro sports is just the easiest way to explain it. It happens in business all the time. People make tons of money. What do? They lose it. Right? Go bankrupt. Why? They make bad decisions because they're not on the inside out wealthy. Does that make sense, you guys here? Right? Most people live in this world. This is a great example why I'm sharing it. Most people live in this world called have, this is different what I taught before, have, do, be. That's where most people live. What does that mean, you think? This is such a great example. People believe that having the possessions will bring them happiness. They believe that having the possessions will bring them happiness. So they think, well, if I get $1 million, I'll be happy, right? If I can just remodel the house, I'll be happy. If I can just get a new car, I'll be happy. If I get a new tattoo, I'll be happy. And then what happens? You get a tattoo, then what? Nothing. You're right back to where you were. And then you crave another one. Because you're searching for something on the outside in versus from the inside out. It's a great analogy to look at. And people do this all the time, right? They want the feeling they believe they will get when they acquire the possession. I'll say it again. They want the feeling they believe when they acquire the possession. But the result is the feeling is often short-lived and underwhelming. They shift their focus to the next thing they think will bring them happiness. Say it again. Did you guys catch that? So the people want the feeling they believe they'll get when they acquire the possession. So that's a part of what? Have. They don't want what they actually have. They want what? The feeling they get when they have the have. Right? But the actual reality is the feeling is often short-lived and underwhelming. People shift the focus to the next thing they believe will bring them happiness. And that's why they're always what? Unhappy, unfulfilled. Because they live in this place of have, do, be. In that scenario. It's backwards, right? And what we taught before in that scenario, which is so powerful. The next piece is do. So what happens is the do piece is people realize that possessions won't bring them happiness. So they move to doing. They believe that if they work out, if they meditate, they eat well, they follow a schedule, that'll bring them happiness. Right? Well, while do does give some benefits, what happens? They find themselves exhausted and disillusioned. So they think, well, if I have this car or this money or whatever, be happy also. I'm not. Well, if I just do these things, I'll be happy. Then what happens? They find themselves burnt out, not to a place where they have the happiness. Why? Because they're basing the happiness on the what? On the doing. That's what people do to screw up, is they do everything backwards in that sphere. Now, if you look at the B, right, this is the crazy part you look at and understand is that the B is whatever we want in life, we can be that right now through the power of imagination and manifestation. I'll say it again. You can be whatever you want in life. We could be the B right now through the power of imagination and manifestation. We can assume the feeling that we believe we'd have right now before we actually have it. Some deep shit right there if you actually feel it. Whatever you want in life, we could be that right now through the power of imagination and manifestation. We can assume that feeling right now and that feeling we believe we have right now before we actually have it. B affects us on the identity level. So the being part is what? The identity level. It's going to make sense in a minute. The identity level that we have in that scenario, because we are being who we want to be, and we naturally attract the things you want in life. And sometimes, so I'll say it again. The B, which is being, right, affects us on the identity level. Because we're being who we want to be, we naturally attract the things you want in life sometimes with our identity. Would have, right? So through the power of manifestation, so a perfect example. If I want to have a beautiful and amazing wife, right? How do I get that? What is that? You have to be the person that what?
Attract what you want.
That attracts that type of person, right? I have to be the person that would attract someone into my life who is beautiful, amazing, whatever it is I want. I mean, beautiful on the inside and the outside, right? But what most people do is they go backwards. They want to have the pretty wife or pretty husband or whatever, the perfect husband first, and then they do the things before they can actually be the thing, which is why they never actually have it. But if I want to have it in life, I got to be it first, and then I do the right things, and then I do what? Then I have it. And it's the same thing true in real estate, is right? You want to have it before, then you want to do the stuff before you ever actually be the person that brings you value. And so the secret and the hack, so to speak, and there's no such thing as a hack, but the way to get that is to be the person from the being standpoint, right? And being affects us on our identity level. It drives our belief and our behavior. So I want you to understand that you have to have this identity of the being of who what? Who you want to be first. And that's why listening to tapes, listening to the CDs is so important. Listening to the audio is so important. Watching the training videos, because that work when no one's watching is actually doing what? Is changing who you're being. And then through that change of being, you start to do what? You start to do the right things and say the right things and are in line with the right things. And all of a sudden, what happens, you start attracting those things that you want, and clients start coming to you and converting at a much higher level. The money starts coming to you much easier, right? The things that you want, desire life, coming to you much easier because you're being first, then you're doing, then you have it.